So Eleventy. It's pretty popular now these days. I think, let's see, how long ago did I convert my site? June 2nd, 2021. So a little over a year. I started building this. And I really enjoy working with Eleventy. The structure that they expect you to use by default, I'm not a fan of at all. In fact, I just felt sloppy. And maybe that's like I wasn't doing it right or something, but the way that they expected me to organize my site, and here's the caveat, because I'm not using nunchucks, my site has two available template types. Markdown, which is what the blog posts are in, and Eleventy.js, which is a couple of things. So that's what the individual pages are written in, but that's also what my layouts are written in, like my template layouts. But all right, so Eleventy, the way that they expect you, let's take a trip back in time through the git commit history here. So if I look at what the repo looked like right before that, look at this root level folder. You got data, you got functions, you got includes, you got content, you got CSS, you got image. You got all the other shit that comes with the root of any project, only one of which is directly Eleventy related. And data, I mean, kind of makes sense to me. Functions is a little weird. These act like filters would in the other templating languages, but they're just attached to any of the content objects that get passed around in the system. So you can say this dot whatever. The layouts, yeah, these are all using the Eleventy templating language, which is, it's just JavaScript, but like you can expect that the class you export, you can have a getter for data and you can have a render method that takes data. Otherwise, it's just straight up JavaScript. But the class that you pass to it, or rather the render object, because I think they're probably using a .bind for this. This object, like here you can see that this dot get Twitch data. Well, the function get Twitch data is not defined anywhere in here. It's global in a sense anyway, and it's in these functions, and you attach those in the Eleventy config. So here, like, I import it. My Eleventy config, I mean, let's just look at this real quick. It's pretty, I mean, it's not like a huge file. It's not even 100 lines, but for a configuration file, I feel like this is a little bit much. And so that's the old structure. Now, the new structure is this. You still have all that root level shit, but Eleventy, anything about Eleventy itself except the JS config file is now contained in an Eleventy folder. And I've named everything pretty much the same, but there's no weird underscore crap. I've started breaking out anything where I feel like there's going to be more than one of them and they're of the same type, and you hook them up to Eleventy in a similar way. They get their own like package, so transforms. I've only got one right now, but this will minify HTML output. I had another for a minute where I was trying to, based on the folder a file came from, like determine its output folder, because Eleventy only lets you have one source folder, but I found a different way around that. But then I just left this the way it was, and I put these config files in here that run all of those like preparation functions or whatever you want to think of. So in here we have functions, and we have each of those just the same as we did in the last setup, and they're more or less built the same way. It's just this config exports a function that does all of that. And so you just import this and run it, and it does all of those. And if you want to manage your global functions, your filters, whatever, you go to this file, that's where you do it. And so the main Eleventy config is sort of like split apart into multiple files. So in ASP.NET world, we did that a lot with our web.config files, which is like the base XML configuration for an entire web application. You could have them in subfolders and they would override those particular values, but you could also have a single web config file be broken up and say, oh, well, this chunk comes from that file and this chunk comes from that file. And it helps immensely with commits being sort of laser focused to the area that they are supposed to affect. And then also just like your reasoning about, okay, well, where do I need to go to make a change to X? And then if I look at my Eleventy config now, it's about half that size. I mean, roughly. Because these three have been abstracted down into just functions. And so I run those. It loads all the global functions. It loads all of my layouts. It attaches all of my transformations. I mean, they call them transforms. That just feels so weird. And then the rest of it is more or less the way that it was before. I think I like reordered some things because it made more sense to me in the new order, but nonetheless.